Porter's Empire. How is everyone doing? We have a really, really special episode here today with Dr. Arash, who is the co-founder of the Prehab guys. And if you don't know who the Prehab guys are, you must not be on social media, must not be doing a whole lot or living under a rock. But Arash and his co-founders have built a $1.3 million person following on our Instagram account and have built a physical therapy content machine. It's very few people that out of the thousands of people we've coached and mentored at Clinical Marketer, very, very few of them are not using their home exercise program software and resources that are out there. And so today we're doing something special and interviewing him on all of the different strategies that he's leveraged to not only build his cash practice, but to integrate Prehab into his clinics, where he's changing the philosophies and the mindsets of their patients to have a more holistic approach on preventing injuries past the point of what they originally signed up for physical therapy on. So we're going to talk a little bit about his content machine, a little bit of his cash practice journey, and then as always, talk about how we can better improve health, start to build wealth, and then pour that back and give that back to our communities, to our families, and to the profession. So, Arash, thanks for being here, man.
What a great intro. Yeah. I'm happy to be on.
Yeah, let's go. So if you're here and you enjoy the content that you get out of Ben, Arash, and myself here today, don't forget to follow and subscribe to the podcast and follow us on YouTube. So to kind of get the formalities out of the way here, can you just tell the few folks who might not know who you are or what it is that you do, what Prehab Guys does, who it's for, and ultimately what the future you're hoping to create with this company that you've created looks like?
Yeah, great question. So me and my two founders, Mike and Craig, met in PT school, and I won't go too detailed with how we started, but we just started creating content. Our focus was to create one post every single day. The reason why we created content was at that time, it seemed like there was a lot of misinformation and poor information online, and people were getting their resources from, discredited individuals. Nowadays it's changed. Now there's so much information that it's hard to find what is the right information. You can find any sort of backing that you want. If you think that your back pain is due to a certain thing, you'll be able to find that. And 90% of people Google search their issue before they see a healthcare provider. So it's very important to have good information out there. So we started with content, and then from there we focused on two different products. One is the exercise database that we use as an HCP platform. We actually created it for ourselves and then realized that some of our friends wanted it. From there, we actually started offering it out to the public. So the exercise library is the first product that we created for the clinician to create an HCP platform, send out to their patients and clients, very detailed exercises, something that we thought that there wasn't there wasn't really anything like that out there. The second product is an app that we have for the consumer to get out of their rehab a certain issue, prehab a certain issue, or just improve mobility. And the reason why that's helpful is it can also be used with the physical therapist. A lot of physical therapists actually like it as like a protocol that they can follow. Also, it's helpful from a maintenance standpoint. We were talking about like prehab, where after they're done with PT, they can do something as a continuation. So that's the main focus. The future is largely growing both of those databases. We love creating content and we love providing as much value as we can, but there's only so much that you can do through social media. It's a great entry point, but ultimately to make a change, these products are what we think are going to help solve the problems that we're looking to solve.
I love it. And so you've been doing this for years. I'm not sure if you remember this. Oh, getting some feedback there. But we actually talked years ago when we wanted to license your home exercise program software for our medical software company, Health Snaps, way back in the day. Do you remember that at all? I doubt it. It was like,
no. We get a lot of the licensing stuff, and we haven't really done it, but I do recall that. Yeah. How long ago? 4 years ago, you said?
Yeah, that was like 5-6 years ago, long before Clinical Marketer was even an idea. It's really exciting to see what you and your partners have built since then. It's incredible to see. So where we want to go from here is we want to take a left turn and talk a little bit about the state of the industry and ultimately where you think it needs to be going before we kind of talk a little bit more about your cash practice. So like today, what kind of pisses you off about the physical therapy industry?
Yeah, a lot. I would say that the big, like if I was to go back and look a little more bigger picture than even PT, I think the healthcare system is predicated on sick care and illness, and it's incentivized for people to be hurt and injured and have chronic issues. So the model is clearly broken, which is why cash-based physical therapy is a thing, because you're going outside the model. So that's one of the biggest things that bothers me, and I think that going outside the model is helpful. I think having tools that people can use on their own is something that is needed. I think nowadays people have to take their health into their own hands. They can't just rely on a primary care provider to help with guiding them and triaging them appropriately. It's those days are just ineffective. So that's one of the big things for. I mean, I love everything about cash-based practice, but the traditional healthcare model is just so broken that I'm happy that people are making the pivot, and it's becoming, physical therapy practice compared to a lot of other healthcare professions. It's a lot easier. The barrier to entry is a lot smaller to begin. You don't need a surgical center. You don't need all these expensive pieces of equipment. So I'm happy that people are making that pivot, and I get that a lot of other professions in the healthcare field, it's a lot harder for, so they kind of have to stay in the system. But that's one thing. I mean, I'm not going to hold my breath to wait for some ethical insurance company to come along that doesn't spend 50% of its money on admin, or it doesn't pay its executives $20 to $30 million a year. Like these are a lot of the reasons why insurance is the way it is and dictates a lot of the plan of care that ultimately the consumer has, which is ineffective right now. So I think that if we can try to get the easiest solution right now is to get people okay with going outside the system, the better off they'll be.
Yeah, that's actually
what do you think?
Ben?
Yeah, no, I think that's the way it needs to go. And I think it's actually starting to happen. We used to, when I first started my practice 5 years ago, we get a lot of people, and we still get this, like, hey, do you take my insurance? And then you tell them, and they're like, oh, well, I want to use my insurance. We're now in the last year or two, we've been actually getting the opposite of that. People asking if we take insurance, because if we did, they wouldn't want to work with us. We would tell them, like, when they ask us, hey, do you take insurance? We're like, no, we don't, yada, yada. And they're like, good, because if you did, I want to work with you. So people are waking up and realizing, hey, if I go the insurance route, it's actually probably going to cost me more money than if I just went the cash-based route and out of network and get better care, and it's just going to be cheaper because I'm getting better more quickly as well. So I think people are starting to wake up a little bit. We're seeing that in the Bay Area, and we're seeing that across the 3 locations of Des Moines and San Diego and the Bay Area, that the people in Bay Area are the ones that are waking up the fastest to the whole insurance and being more open to going out of network. So I'm hoping that will start kind of spreading across the U.S. a little bit more, but we are starting to see some of this for sure.
And it is. I mean, the data suggests that it's pretty extreme. Over the last 5 years, the second biggest category where consumers are splurging the most beyond just experiences and vacations, number 2 is health and wellness. And despite us being in a recession and people's buying power and spending power is like falling pretty quickly, year over year for the last 3 years, spending on health and wellness has actually continued to increase. So I think the consumer is getting equally as pissed off with insurance companies as all of us are. So it's actually really, really exciting to see. And I think we're starting to see almost what physical therapy is, the delivery of it, what it means to consumers. We're starting to see kind of evolve and adapt. I know we're seeing it in ProKinetics, your practice, Ben. But I'm curious, Arash, like, how do you see the physical therapy, not just the model evolving, but the actual like care delivery? What types of things that we might be supporting with besides just getting people out of pain? Do you see that changing at all?
Yeah. It's a good question. I would say, first of all, the landscape PTs are set up pretty well for success. As of now, I think, a lot of people that have certain issues don't even find a PT. Like, there's a stat I've seen that of people that have back pain, 83% are prescribed medication, only 8% go to see a physical therapist. So there's a huge gap between where we're at and where we could be. And in that stat, chiropractors were seeing 20%. So, and physical therapists are set up well to not only get people out of pain, but prevent issues from happening long term. And I think that's where we can come in and help out with other professions that are focused just on symptom management. Like, you're looking at your acupuncture, massage therapist, chiropractor. And I get that, there's some chiros that can help with exercises and injury prevention as well to some extent. But I think that PTs are set up well to be that person that maybe some of these symptom managers, get them out of pain, but PT comes in to increase their capacity to stay out of pain indefinitely. So I think that's a big shift. I know that the reason I largely got into PT, like went to PT in the first place, was that I had an ankle injury and I got out of pain, but every time I would play sports again, I kept flaring up my ankle. And so that was, yes, rehab to some extent, but my ability to get back to my sport was just not there. And that's the missing piece that I think that is as a, a country, like PTs can really take over, because that's kind of this gap, and that's where prehab sort of comes in to help bridge that gap between where you're at right now and where you need to be so that you can go back to those things that you want to go back to. And it's not just about being, pain-free with ADLs, because a lot of people, ADLs is just not enough.
Right. And that's especially with like the patient population that we usually see in cash-based practices. Everybody's usually pretty active and wants to get to a higher level of exercise. And I think going back to the insurance thing is they're realizing, hey, yeah, they're going to get me back to being maybe out of pain, but if I go back to running or go back to CrossFit, it's going to come right back because insurance cut me off before I was able to progress back into that too. So I think there's a big market that needs to be served that isn't. And I think that's where kind of the cash-based model meets people at too with it, with the prehab. So.
Right. And we're actually starting to see that even in populations outside of just like your active adults, people who are like real like health and wellness like nuts, it's starting to expand out there pretty aggressively. Like, strangely enough, the people who we see growing their cash practices the fastest are in really rural blue collar towns, which is like counterintuitive to what most people think, because when they think cash services, they think premium kind of high ticket services, and no way people in those towns would ever like pay for this stuff. But what we're finding is that in these towns, that is where care can often be like even worse than in some of the bigger areas, because they're not able to recruit as good of talent. They're still restricted by all the insurance red tape that they have to deal with. And so when a cash practice goes in there and they're able to offer a premium service that they're able to give much more of themselves to make sure they get that long-term result, those clinics are exploding. So even the folks that aren't in LA or San Diego and in the like the blue collar towns like La Crosse, freaking Wisconsin, they're willing to invest because they're also sick of like the status quo, and they're looking for a more I don't know if rigorous is the right word, but something that's deeper, where they can build a stronger connection, where they can truly have more of a transformation. And going off of that, as we see this, cash physical therapy model explode, there's other people who are kind of piggybacking off of it. And speaking of like things that kind of piss physical therapists off, how do you feel about this new DPT acronym that is blowing across the internet, which is dynamic personal training? Personal trainers offering physical therapy service, and calling themselves DPTs. How do you both feel about that? Let's start with you, Arash.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. I've seen that other countries, people put PT behind their name and they make it seem like they are a physical therapist. This new acronym I was not aware of, but I think that it's already somewhat of an issue in itself that I've had patients that say their trainer specializes in physical therapy or whatever it may be, which I'm not sure how that is even possible. But this now creates more confusion. And this is kind of my point with, we're set up well for success based on the skills that we have, but it's on us to market it appropriately. And I'm not going to wait on the APTA to step in and do what it needs to do. It's proven that that's not its focus, when it should be, in my opinion. But I think that, we have to take it upon ourselves to market it appropriately, because if not, other people that have bigger budgets will take that space over. And you see the stats on PT as a field like slowly diminishing with how many people are professionals, which is not a good thing. But I would say that it's on us. We have to market it, and that's a huge other reason why we started the Prehab guys in the first place, was because people were so confused as to what PT was able to offer. They thought it was just a massage and some soft tissue work, and you're done. Like, the field has evolved. This is kind of the same idea with, we've gone from just symptom management to try to build up capacity. So it's not just about the massage modalities based stuff. It was at some point, that was the focus 20 years ago. That's all PT largely did. But now we're focused on a lot more things with exercises and, building that tissue to eventually reduce its risk for future injuries. But I would say not too happy about that. And I think it's going to lead to more confusion, but I think it's on us to try to make that clear to the consumer, because the consumer is obviously going to be confused seeing DPT for a non-physical therapist.
Right. And they're going to start asking, like, how are you different? And after, we've trained more than a handful of people how to sell. And I know the kind of base sales ability of PTs. And I know it's hard to answer that for a lot of people, to be able to explain the nuanced differences in a way that is that the consumer will understand. So it's definitely an important thing to handle. I want to dive a little bit deeper into the how in a second. But Ben, what's your comment?
Yeah, I know. I think Arash hit the nail on the head with it. I think it says more about us as a profession than it does the DPTs that are marketing it. It's kind of on us for even, like, you don't hear anybody trying to copy chiros or muddy the waters with confusion on that, because chiros just do such a good job with marketing and sales that nobody can really step on their turf. We've allowed this environment to be able to happen. So I think it's on us more than it is actually the DPTs that or personal trainers that are claiming to be DPTs and whatnot. So that's my thought on it. And yeah, it's shitty that they're doing that, but at the same time, we kind of allowed it at the end of the day too. So
right. And this is gonna be a fun conversation. Like, why do you feel like so the kind of the order of operations with like consumer adoption of healthcare services, it started with chiropractic in about the 1930s. That's when it really started to be popular in the US. It's obviously not when it was like created and founded. That was in like the 1800s, I believe. But first it was chiropractic. That was the second alternative primary means of medicine in the US by the 1930s. By the 1950s, 1960s, the dental industry exploded, and it became common practice to brush your teeth twice a day. And I feel that physical therapy is kind of in its entrepreneurial renaissance as well, where everyone's just now starting to figure out like how to sell, how to market, how to not just be kind of an order taker of insurance MDs kind of just throwing patients at you. And how do you feel like physical therapists need to kind of up their game to combat personal trainers who inherently are more entrepreneurial? Because it sounds like you both agree, like that's how physical therapists win that match. Any thoughts?
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. I think we as a profession, like, and everyone needs to do their job. Like, I think PTs really just want to help people, and that's their focus, and that's why they got into the field. And you see them taking all these Con Ed courses on how to be a better PT, when there are things that maybe should be implemented within those courses on how to better sell, how to better have these conversations, because ultimately you're selling people on even exercises that they may not want to do, and having that skill set regardless is helpful, whether you're starting your own practice or you're selling someone on a 10 pack of PT sessions. So I think we need more advocacy. That's largely what we started off with trying to do, is trying to create a better understanding for the public of what PT can do. It's not just about, massage. But there needs to be more, because there's a lot of trainers that are really good at building businesses and marketing themselves. Same thing with chiros, and PTs we just have not developed that skill set. I think
Just
there's a lot of, yeah.
I was going to say, I think it's just early. I think everyone's starting to really figure it out now that cash physical therapy is really exploding, and now they don't have the limitations that they used to have. They don't have to rely on anyone else to generate their patients. But now it's not just up to the entrepreneurs, but you're right. It's like the PTs. We have to learn how to communicate this. We have to learn how to be consultants. We have to learn how to be leaders, to get people to shift their beliefs around what it is they need to do to have the kind of life and outcomes that they're hoping to get out of this stuff. So you created a content company with your partners. How would you guys recommend for the people who are listening to this? Like, how do we best educate the public and really take ownership over the public's perception of what physical therapy is and can be for them, and hopefully steer us in a direction where it is common practice to see a PT as often, or if more often, than seeing your dentist? So that's where we all know that people are going to benefit most from it.
Right. I'd say that it doesn't have to be as to the scale that we're doing necessarily, but if there's enough people that, when they have the conversation with their physician, with their patients, with their Uber driver that's in back pain, like if each person is putting emphasis on how can I help solve this problem and confusion and make sure that the field is moving forward, even a little bit. It doesn't have to be top of mind 24/7. It'll move the needle exponentially. Even, as much as we're doing, like if every PT was to have one conversation throughout the year, that would move the needle a lot more than the three of us, or our team is a lot bigger now, like trying to create content every single day. Like there's just something about these conversations that people have in person. And yeah, if you have the capacity and skill and interest to create content, that can, go from one to many each time you have a message, which will help with deliverability. But I think that, there has to be enough of an understanding of what the problem is, and care from the PTs to want to help solve it, to move the needle. And I think that people are now starting to realize that. So, and I think you're bringing up a good point with like the timing is great right now with this whole, entrepreneurial spirit that PTs have, which has never been the case before. And so, there's a lot of potential there.
Right. Now, Ben, I got a tactical question for you. So the entrepreneurial spirit within PT is definitely exploding and thriving. But one part where I know a lot of people struggle with is, how do you pass that same will to shift beliefs and to consult and lead people to your employees, to your staff? Because a lot of people just, they have a staff PT who's struggling to sell cash packages, and they're so quick to say that, oh, they're just not an A player, they're just not a salesperson. How would you, which we know is not the case, it all comes down to leadership. So as a leader within your practice and within the, our communities and to the industry, how do entrepreneurs have the conversations to help instill those same sales philosophies and strategies to the PTs who, for the first time in their life, are selling $1,500, $2,000 packages? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there's been a handful of PTs that have struggled when they first are starting within my practice with regards to the sales component. Like they had been up in for the last 3 to 4 years, or their entirety of their career of 3 to 4 years, they were worth a copay. And now I'm telling them, oh, you're worth $200 plus, and that you have to, pitch that to a patient. It's hard for some people to do that and wrap their heads around it. And some people have to learn the hard ways, but I try and prevent that as much as possible. One of my favorite stories is one of the physical therapists. He had been in the insurance-based world for about 3 years and just felt like he was worth a copay. And he was struggling to tell people what they recommended. They needed actually 10 visits. He was telling me they only needed 6 because he felt like, oh, if they pay for PT, they won't be able to afford these other things, which isn't the case. And so he would undersell, and also because he would undersell, he wouldn't get results for people. And then they would go to their physician or their surgeon and end up getting surgery. And we had that actually happen once where he checked in with a PT or a patient that had saw him for 6 visits. He's like, yeah, PT didn't work. I went and saw my surgeon. I'm getting surgery on X date, it's for back pain. And so I'm like, because you didn't convey in conviction in what he actually needed and prescribe that, now this person is undergoing unnecessary surgery. Said in a nicer way, but that's what had to actually happen for him to be able to make that switch and whatnot. But I just go back to everybody like Arash said, that PTs just want to help people. And so I leverage that when I'm trying to coach somebody on this, is like, hey, it's your ethical obligation to make this recommendation of what they actually need. Pretend these visits are free. Yeah. That's how you need to make that pitch and make that decision for the patient. Pretend it's free, because at the end of the day, it's your ethical obligation. If you don't sell, somebody else who might not be qualified will, and they will go with them, even though it's not the right solution. But they did because there was conviction and authority on that pitch. So
that's right. No matter what, a sale is getting made. Whether you're selling them or someone else is selling them. And a lot of people don't have nearly as much goodwill and good intention going into that sale as you might. Arash, anything to add to that, or any?
Yeah, I would say that for us, at least, we're very data focused. So we try to track everything from the first time they reach out to the conversion to coming in, and from the time they come in, what packages they get, like what's the percentage of them coming back. And having the PT see those numbers is helpful, so that they can see how maybe they compare to what we have as like the gold standard. And we track that on a weekly and monthly basis. So they may think that they're doing a good job with, conversions. And if they see that they're above or below the norm or the goals, then they can get a better gauge of what we think is realistic. So that's super helpful from one end. I would also say that, yeah, like Ben, you were saying, the ability to help is by you seeing them and trying to make it where whatever you think is going to be best is what you should try to talk to them about with the plan of care. And then from there, you guys can negotiate and see what limitations they may have from a time or financial standpoint. But you have to start with what you think is going to be ideal, because if not, then you're going to get less than optimal results. And these people are coming in because they're trying to get your help. And I think that stat just says it all, with the second area of most spend is health and wellness, outside of what you said, travel, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, people are starting to recognize that their health is only going to decline if they don't do anything about it. And so people are starting to prioritize and value their health a bit more now, which is great to see.
Right. And so have either of you worked on any other like mindset training around money with a lot of your staff? Because the big part of it is that they're really just projecting their own financial biases onto other people. Because let's be honest, $1,500, $2,000, it's the most expensive thing that most people are going to buy, this month or whenever they're coming in to see you. So do either of you take your teams through any sort of that training, or do you have any books or recommendations that you could have any of the listeners have their teams listen to, or they should listen to, around that money mindset?
Arash, I'll let you take that first one or that one too.
Yeah, that we don't have anything specific there.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing specific when it comes down to that. We do try to create some type of win-win with each of the PTs, where when patients come in or packs are sold and revenue generation is high, visits are seen, that there is some type of reward on their end financially. So it makes it seem like it's a win-win, and it allows us to not have to focus on managing each individual as much, because they're hopefully a little more incentivized to see that patient, and see more visits, and follow up with each patient. So,
right, love that. Yeah. Ben, you got anything?
Yeah, we also coach people on, like, one thing that I see most common with physical therapists when they're starting is they try and guess what the patient can afford. And like, that's the thing too, is I tell people, don't make judgments on what you think somebody can afford, because Like I did this once when I was early on. Somebody came in that, I just assumed that they didn't have a whole lot of money. And after a few visits, he was probably the wealthiest patient that ever walked through our doors. And I undersold him. I did the same thing. I told the story of the other PT. I was like, hey, yeah, you just need 6 visits, knowing full well that he needed 10, but I just didn't think he could afford 10. So I didn't pitch it. And we got to the end of the 6 visits and he wasn't where he needed to be. He was like a super nice guy, luckily. But at the end of the day, I almost sacrificed his results because I was making assumptions based on what he could and cannot afford. And it could have been bad, like these decisions make long lasting, life changing solutions or problems for these patients. And so you can't be making those projections and estimations on what somebody can and cannot afford. We've had people come in with Gucci shoes on, Gucci out, head to toe, and they were the ones that said it was too expensive. And then we have some people that are on Medi-Cal where they don't get any reimbursement on Medi-Cal and that are just struggling to keep a roof over their heads and food. And they're the ones that are wanting to do sessions, because we've had people tell us in that situation, like, hey, after food and a shelter, health is the number 3rd thing, sometimes number 2 or number 1 on what's most important to me. So it just goes down to priorities and what people value and whatnot. So that's another thing too, is I really coach the physical therapists is learn from my mistake. Don't project or make assumptions on what somebody can and cannot afford, because a lot of times it's not the case. So.
Right. And the funny thing is, like, the more money someone makes, like, the less money they actually look like they have. Like, there's like at a certain point, there's like an inverse relationship between like the how much they're like projecting out on like how much money they make. So yeah, it's a really, really key one. And for anyone who wants to learn more about like the money mindset, because all of us, we're givers by nature. We just want to help other people, and it's hard for us to receive, but that also means that it limits how much we can actually give back. If you're looking for good books on it, read How to Make One Hell of a Profit and Still Get to Heaven, or the entire Go Giver series. There's one specifically on selling, the Go Giver Selling. Really, really good books. Definitely recommend having your teams read those as part of their onboarding material that you give them, or just give them as good gifts. It's always good to give your PT surprise gifts like that. It's awesome. So you two both kind of talked about mentorship and how it's important to learn like the entrepreneurial marketing skills, sales skills, business skills in order to change the narrative of what physical therapy can be. So I'm curious, is there a mentor that either of you have had recently? And what's like a key takeaway that's kind of shaped your philosophy within business and how you run things? Any key mentors that taught you an important lesson?
Yeah, I would say most of my marketing experience is more on the digital side. I know we do have a clinic, but our digital business has been around a bit longer. Those skills do transfer over to some extent, but a lot of what I focus on is perceived value with what individuals are going to be getting, and I don't know if that's like a specific person that's popularized that belief, but I think that the more you can highlight how much value they are getting for what they would be paying for, the much more the decision becomes obvious yes and more of a no-brainer. Like Alex Hormozy tries to talk about these deals where make the deal so good that people feel stupid saying no. So for a digital business, it's a bit easier because the margins are higher. There's very little cost that's associated with it, and whatever you generate is typically largely profit because the overhead is fixed. So that's one thing. But even with the clinic, we try to throw in things like T-shirts with packages sold just to make it a bit more exciting. Hats. We do have some bands as well to try to build up, excitement and maximize the experience. Because the goal is to try to get each person to not just come in by themselves, but try to have them refer at least like another, even if it's like each person refers half of a person, that's going to exponentially grow your practice over a certain period of time. So if you can maximize that experience and get the sale by highlighting perceived value, I think that you're going to be set for the long term.
Nice. So Hormozy and designing irresistible offers.
Yeah.
Right? Nice. Yeah,
I think that's good. Yeah.
That's I mean, that really is an art. That's like one of my favorite things in the world. Besides like the tangible things that you're able to deliver on, is there anything about the patient experience or the patient journey that you try to hit on to make it not just the outcome be different than what they've tried, but how like the feel of going through treatment with your practice? Have you done anything in that area?
Yeah, I don't know, Ben, if you want to just take this one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, hit it.
Yeah. Big thing is like people want to feel heard and listened to. And I think that's where we really separate ourselves. And it's really easy to stand out in the healthcare space with that because
You
you
actually
call, yeah,
care.
like you call a physical therapy clinic that takes insurance and like, yeah, what's your name, date of birth, and insurance? Like they don't even ask like, hey, what's going on? What are you trying to get back to? Make sure that they can actually help. So we spend 15 to 20 minutes as a doctor of physical therapy with them on a phone, free phone call to make sure that we can absolutely help, listen to their stories. And we get done with those phone calls and they're like, holy crap, nobody's actually listened to me the way that you guys just did. So it's really like listening to them and really validating what they want to get back to and not just being dismissed on what their goals are and actually giving them a solution and outcome and like a path forward to get to this, get where they want to go and whatnot. So yeah, it's just like other little things, making them feel special. Like when they walk in the door, like we have a whiteboard that says, welcome, Mrs. Smith. We can't wait to help you get back to X, Y, and Z. Right. We send a welcome text from their treating physical therapist. So there's just a lot of little things that we just show that we are listening and we actually value them as a person and don't just see them as a number. So a lot of little things that go into it. I think I've talked about this on another podcast, and Rosh, you can throw this into your practice too, if you want. But we had one of our clients, they put on their intake form that patients fill out before they come in and ask them what their favorite music is. And they have that playing in when they first walk into their clinic. So they've got that music playing. So, I mean, that just goes to show like the attention to detail and how we can really craft things and be more than just physical therapy as well. So.
Do you remember any like hilarious submissions on that? Because I know if someone asked me that, I'll throw them a curveball.
No, we haven't had anything too crazy.
Oh, missed opportunities. I love it. But yeah, I mean, that's the part that I think a lot of practices struggle with because they're so focused on like the better outcome. But it's like being successful in business, at least I believe, I'm curious if you guys would agree with this. It's not about being better. It's about being different because it takes a while to get to that outcome point. And if you're trying to convince somebody who's never paid cash for healthcare services in their life, like it has to feel unlike anything that they've tried before. Otherwise, they're going to assume it's the same and start to ask themselves, like, why the hell am I paying cash for this? You know what I mean? So, Ben, like your onboarding process is brilliant. Yeah, I think the practices who focus not just on the physical well-being of the patient, but like helping them get emotion-based wins by shifting their beliefs around, what they actually think can happen. Like that's how people win. Those are the clinics who are dominating today.
Right. We're getting them wins before they even walk in the door because there's a lot of people that before they hopped on that first free phone call with us, didn't think that they'd be able to get back to X, Y, and Z. And on that phone call, if we truly feel like we can help them and get them back to X, Y, and Z, we let them know about it. And we also tell a story of somebody similar to them that was able to do the same thing. So you just instill belief into these people from the get-go is a big emotional based win before they even pay anything as well. So
right. Anything to add to that, Arash? Otherwise, I got another one teed up for you that I prepared just for you.
Yeah, no, that's the hardest part is to try to get them to commit to the plan long term, and you have to keep them motivated enough, and the results don't come in immediately. And so finding those ways are very helpful. I know for us, our clinic is not that big, so patients, we only have at most 3 patients in at a time. And so it's very much like a family environment of people talking to each other. We have, a cold brew on tap. So like people would drink coffee beforehand if they want to get some extra caffeine. It's like much more of a small, like intimate type setting and allows for people to feel more comfortable. And it just feels like a family almost is taking care of you versus going to a healthcare facility that is treating your diagnosis and that's it. So we try to create that culture and environment for people to feel like that. Some people, we have a shower, people hang out, shower. Like, obviously, the space is not big enough for people to hang out all day, but we try to make it accommodating and allow for each person to feel as comfortable as possible when they're here.
Yeah, man, I love it. Any well, I be respectful of time. I'm going to ask this other question because I'm curious, just because of your background with the prehab. Recently, we had somebody who joined our program, but then ended up leaving because she said that it was against the way that we ran, like our clinics went against her ethos, because she didn't believe that packages were ethical, because people come in to have a problem solved, and she believed that you should just solve that problem, and then if they come back for something else, then you can support them. And obviously, I respect that. It's definitely a different mindset than what I have around like what is in the best interest of the people that we're serving. But I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts on selling packages? How are yours kind of structured? And are you working like more prevention into those packages?
Yeah, good question. So our packs are, you could get individual sessions if you really don't want to purchase a pack, and that's an option always. I would say that that's probably 10% of the sessions that we have, maybe even less, is individual sessions. And then we started a 5-pack, go to a 10-pack, and most people start with a 10-pack. That's kind of the gold standard. We don't really even market the 20-pack, but we know if someone's post-op fairly early on, like we talk to them about the 20-pack. But most people shoot for that 10-pack mark, and I think that that's been very good for most people. I think, I don't know the stats, but a very, very high percentage use all their visits, and it doesn't really leave for unused visits. And most people end up actually, if anything, repurchasing another pack over having wasted visits. And so what we'll do sometimes as well to incentivize the packs is certain periods of time, like in the new year, we discounted the 10-pack to make it more of a no-brainer to just get into that 10-pack. If you're hesitant, you get that. Or if you already have one, like just get another 10-pack because you're going to need that. For prevention, we've talked about trying to create some sort of prehab screen where people come in just for that by itself, and that would be an entry point for people to learn more about what prehab physical therapy can offer from an injury standpoint. If you see some asymmetries or issues to work on, then we're here. But from a continuum of care from rehab, we try to build up capacity as high as possible. I would say we don't do too much strength and conditioning. Maybe a small percentage of people, 10% at most, actually get to that point. But a lot of it is just rehabbing to a very high level, which I would consider prehab, over a pure maintenance program. At that point, usually trainer or strength and conditioning coach will take over, and we don't have one in-house.
Are you doing maintenance packages after plan of care? Is that something that you're not really doing?
It's not different. Like, people do maintenance, but it's just the same 5-pack, 10-pack, etc. And I've seen like this one guy I've seen for like 6 years, every single week. So there are definitely people that stay on the maintenance package, but it's just as it would normally be. A lot of them are just trying to train around pain that they've had that they're afraid of pushing themselves too far into. So just continue to build tissue capacity. But I would say that 6-year-old patient is the anomaly. I would say most people get up until a point where they feel really comfortable with, and they get back to their sport or activity, and we're there to kind of help adjust things along the way. And once they're there for a few months, then at that point, we kind of cut the cord for the most part, and then we're there as needed.
Right, and that's honestly one of the things that's fascinating, because as we find, like, there's, especially as we coach people, they come when they come in, they'll maybe average 4-5 visits with their patients, because they're just selling pain relief basically rather than a transformation. Then when they finally start to sell larger packages, 10 visits, where maybe the main problem they're focusing on is done after their 6th visit, but now they're working on something else to achieve like a higher goal that they might have. we're finding those people keep buying packages. They want to keep coming back. And the transformation that they're able to get out of that is incredible. That's why it kind of takes me back sometimes on how some people think that what's best for the patient is just giving them what they think they need, what they want, rather than what they need. Any thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, no, I think it's spot on, and that's the thing too, and why we promote packages. Like, people that pay attention, and they're going to get better results because they've got better buy-in. If you do the pay per visit, we have that option too, Arash, where people can pay per visit, and those people very, very rarely get that great of results because they just come in for 2 or 3 visits, and yeah, it's just hard to get long-term life-changing results for people. They're just coming in for 2 or 3 visits. So that's why I think like the packages are such a great option, because you're just going to get better results for patients. People need to have that accountability and that buy-in. And if they have that buy-in, they're going to do the exercise. They're going to come in weekly. You're not going to be skipping visits, stuff like that. So you're just getting better results for patients, in my opinion, by doing the packages.
Amen. So we're coming up on our final minute here. So I just have 2 questions for 2 of you that I think everyone will get a lot of value out of. So starting with you, Arash, what's the best or most worthwhile investment you've made?
I would say investing in myself has always paid the best ROI over anything else. And I would say there are a couple consultants that come to mind that we've used that help significantly, both with mindset, with understanding the business landscape, with understanding how to deal with people. That's something that within the last 3 years, we've gone from 4 years, we've gone from just us to a team of 31 people. So there's a lot of managing that goes behind that, and making sure, each person gets what they want mixed with what the business needs is something that has been difficult, especially for roles that we're not familiar with like development and engineers. And I'm a PT, and that's what I know, but there's all these other roles that we've learned how to structure, positions for, and how to keep them happy and make sure that they live and breathe the mission just how we do. So I think that the consultants that have helped us with that has been by far the most helpful, because now anything that we decide to do is leverage significantly more compared to us trying to just do everything ourselves.
I don't think you can come up with a better answer than that. Invest in yourself, invest in mentorship, then invest in your people. Make your company's vision big enough to fit your employees and team's vision inside of it. So key. If you're having a hard time retaining talent, that might be your issue right there. For the final question, what over the years as you've grown your practice, what has become more important to you, and what's become a little bit less important as you kind of build wisdom within your business?
Yeah, that's a good question. What's become more important to me is organization and structure. What's become less important to me is my specific to-do list, because I can only, kind of going off of the previous point, because I can only do so much as one person. But if I organize and create a clear plan for the PTs in this case, or for the marketing team, or with the product team, like trying to figure out what the direction, what the projects that we want fully scoped out look like, there's a lot more things that can be achieved through that organization. And I'm not naturally an operations person, but I've learned to be a lot more organized with the things that I think we need over time, because that's what's needed. And a lot of people are not going to get things maybe as clear as I have them in my mind. So I need to have that. And we use Asana for project management, which has been a game changer.
Yep. Same. I think the same way. I'm a total definitely a workhorse, and operations did not come naturally to me. But once you have it and you get a taste of what that freedom is like when things are organized and well structured, and how much more support you can give your teams, it's you start to love it. Definitely start to love it. Everyone, that is all that we have time for. So if you are here and you got value out of this, make sure we thank Arash in the comments below, because there's a million things that he could be doing right now, but he's here sharing his wisdom and his knowledge with each and every one of you. So make sure to give him some love. Is there anywhere that they can go if they want to learn more about you, either as a business owner, as a human being, or learn more about the Prehab guys and how they can start to leverage your resources and your content to further their mission? Where can they find you?
Yeah, at the Prehab guys, pretty much everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. We are going to start our podcast back up. We have many episodes. That's Prehab podcast. We have an exercise database. If you're looking for an HEP platform, it's on the main website. So if you go to prehabguys.com, you'll see the exercise library drop down. The app is also something that you can check out on the website. Both of those have a 7-day free trial. Yeah, and if there are any questions, we answer every email, every DM. So just shoot it over our way, and we'll make sure to help out however we can.
Yeah. Also want to echo something too. We've used Prehab guys for HEP since we started 5 years ago. We've had over 3,000 patients go through it as an HEP. We've had over 15 physical therapists use it, and they all love it. So if you guys are a clinic owner and looking for an HEP program, I'd highly recommend the Prehab guys too.
This actually isn't staged.
That's
this is
great.
really, really funny. In the elevator when I was visiting Ben in San Diego, there was a guy talking about how nice the app was, and he was using the Prehab guys.
No way.
Airbnb, I swear to God. Absolutely insane. So excellent product. We recommend it to all of our clients. Go check it out. Arash, thank you so much for your time, man. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you guys. That was great chatting.
Right, guys.